Headline: Tuesday, September 3rd, 1913. Mendel Beiliss, a Jew in Kiev, Russia, is accused of blood libel and jailed in a harsh Russian jail. This is a most serious charge, claiming that he killed a Russian boy to use his blood for the making of matzah for the Jewish seder. The world, from Europe to the United States, observe with astonishment, holding rallies and asking lots of questions. We look in the home of the Russian defender of Mendel Beiliss. We see the door open to the modest home of Nikolai Krasakov, where he enters along with Sergei Mlaski and Sergei's wife, Katya Mlaski.
Come inside. Oh, that was a wonderful meal. Finally, Semchik has gotten himself a good chef. Now, my cook has prepared a very special strudel and some cookies for us. Ah, strudel, my favorite food.
Next to vodka, of course.
That goes without saying. But as we know, vodka is not a food, it is a way of life and my basic sustenance.
And it is time for you to give up that sustenance.
You have tried over the years, my dear Katya, to reform me. For my own well-being, I know. But as I grow older, I am more like a child. You know, if I see it, I want it.
Then put it out of sight, Nikolai.
More easily said than done. It creeps out of the cabinet stealthily.
Only for you, my dear friend, can a good drink move from place to place without human intervention.
And speaking of vodka, I will be right back. I'll bring the strudel out onto the table too. Wait till you taste it.
The only good thing about Nikolai's penchant for vodka is that he seems to imbibe indefinitely without ill effects.
And without any loss to his mental abilities, I might add.
Well, you should know after all the years you two have worked together.
Yes, it's been, let me think, about 17 years.
Sergei, about that rumor going around about Nikolai, is it something we should mention?
I'm not sure. Perhaps we should wait to see if he brings it up.
I told you the vodka was stealthy. It made not a single move while I was in the kitchen. So, Katya, can you tell us more about how you are keeping our community vital and healthy?
Just more of the usual. Social affairs, meetings, and a touch of politics.
Do you see a lot of your brother and father at your meetings?
Yes, they are still close and trying to keep connected to the people.
Yeah, a good thing to do these days. Still, and above all, it's the people that count. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes even the Tsar forgets that.
The Tsar forgets nothing, my friend. Especially when his eyes and ears are everywhere. Let's not forget that.
No serious danger, I assure you. Lurking around every corner, there seems to be someone trying to curry favor with a local politician who allegedly knows the Tsar personally. The Tsar has friends he doesn't even know he has. And what about your work these days, Sergei? Are you letting it interfere with your chess?
My priorities, as always, are well conceived and well executed. Chess comes first, along with a good book, then comes work. And how about you?
My work. Well, perhaps you have heard the rumor that's on everyone's lips at the courthouse. Well, if you have not, it's a new assignment, the Beiliss case. Only the most controversial case in our lifetime, full of trenchant issues.
And not without dangers.
Yes, as a full life has its dangers. So, Katya, what do you think about Beiliss? You know, Beiliss the Jew.
Beiliss. Do you really want an answer?
Of course.
Well, what I have read in the papers for the last 2 years is that he has been in jail for more than 2 years, and every day I hear or read that it is time for the people to avenge the death of the boy he presumably killed.
The Black Hundreds are out in force, stirring the pot and adding to the chaos.
I don't know if he's guilty, but I do know you don't keep someone confined for 2 years without a trial.
Yes, they have stubbed their toe on that one.
But gotten away with it, I would like to add.
And all of that is going to change soon, now that you will defend him. Right, Nikolai?
It's just a rumor now.
Would you accept such an assignment?
Probably yes. But perhaps if offered, I might not have a choice. To Sergei, my comrade in arms, to our closeness, our survival of trials and tribulations together, and our caring for one another, I propose this toast. Zazdrovia.
Zazdrovia.
September 4th, 1913, Kiev, Russia. It seems that the Black Hundreds, a dominant right-wing anti-Jew organization, is demanding the trial and sentencing of Mendel Beiliss, but more importantly are using the incident to fuel their propaganda. Friday, September 5th, 1913. The State Attorney's Office of Kiev, Dmitry Viper, looking through a set of folders, the Kiev records of the Beiliss case. Sitting across his desk is Luka Kalnikov, the state prosecutor, and a subordinate to Viper.
I'm not pleased with the progress on this case. It has been badly mismanaged.
I understand, Dmitry. It was my finding as well.
But you have not been able to resolve this issue. Why is that?
The locals here have their prerogatives, and in a case or two, some independent channels that lead directly to the Tsar's family.
Yes. Everyone has channels to the Tsar. Let me tell you, this case has been an embarrassment to the Tsar. I've been informed of this directly from the Tsar's high command. And now it is my job to bring this case to closure as quickly as possible. Do you understand that?
Without question, Dmitry.
Do we have any enemies here in Kiev? And the channels to the Tsar, who are they?
It is rumored that Mayor Brandorf is able to reach the Tsar's family, but not the Tsar directly.
Will he interfere?
I don't believe so if we are careful.
Do we have a pre-trial hearing date?
As you requested, I have it set for 6 days from today.
Very good. And Ivanov will be the prosecuting attorney.
Yes, as we discussed yesterday.
Is he up to the job?
Without question. He has the tenacity of a mad dog.
And your strong recommendation for defense attorney is this Krezikov person?
Yes, Dmitry. He has a good reputation for defense cases and has been softening with age, especially in the last few years.
How old a man is he?
Now 57 and looking to retire with pension in just a couple years.
And will he recognize my authority in this case?
I believe that everyone here in Kiev knows you and the strength of your office as Attorney General.
You understand, Luka. My future position is at stake here.
That's very clear to me, Dmitry. But also, we must be as clean as possible. We must be perceived as fair, lest the whole case blow up into an international incident. Already, papers in Britain, America, and France have editorials about this case, and they are not favorable.
Your sense of fairness, although admirable in principle, well, sometimes eludes me.
It's simply that the eyes of the entire world are now on this case, and the perception of fairness, at least, it seems to me, is all important.
Yeah, your point is well taken. But we should never confuse perception and reality. It's true. We must be very careful. The Tsar's international image as a civilized man is very important to him. But inside, I can tell you that he can be very determined, angry, and brutal.
Which may be unhealthy if you are in his path at such a time.
If we are in his path, my dear Luka, now, let's get Krezikov in here. So, you are Attorney Krasakov.
Yes.
Do you know who I am?
Yes. You are the Attorney General of Russia.
That's correct. And I have a few questions to ask you.
Yes,
You are aware, of course, of the Beiliss case.
to some extent. It is all over the newspapers and streets.
And do you have an opinion about Beiliss?
No, as to his guilt or innocence, I do not know. As to his internment for 2 years, this is a black eye for all of Russia.
And the Tsar agrees. So you can see how important it is to move the case forward. Now, tell me, have you seen the evidence developed by our detectives?
I confess that I have not. It is not my practice to intrude in matters that are not assigned to me.
A virtue, Mr. Krasakov. And do you know the practice of ritual murder of the Jewish people?
The newspaper Kievlinin and others have written articles about it, and the Black Hundreds are rather verbal conveyors of this information.
And do you believe it is true?
I have never come directly face to face with it.
Good answer. But not to my question. I asked if you believe that the Jews murder Christians for the use of their blood.
It is difficult for me to believe in such a practice.
I see. Now, tell me, what is your reputation in this department? I asked for someone with an impeccable reputation and someone who people trust, and your name was at the top of the list.
For that, I am deeply honored.
And I have made the decision that you will be Beiliss's defense attorney.
Again, a great honor to be able to serve the state.
Do you have any reservation or misgivings about this assignment?
I am used to carrying out my defense work wherever it takes me. I have never had a case with this degree of public spotlight.
And so?
I will consult, as I have in the past, with my superiors. Other than that, it is my practice to take responsibility for preparing and executing an appropriate defense strategy.
Admirable. Very admirable. It's dawned on me that you've talked about retiring soon.
In a few years, perhaps.
So, you're a man of modest means.
Enough to get by.
So you will need your pension when you retire.
That is true.
You know, under the right circumstances, the state can be very generous.
I am not able to follow you.
Well, simply, I've known of cases in which a public servant was well rewarded for years of distinguished service, additional stipend upon the retirement, use of a dasha in the country.
A good practice, but not one highly publicized.
For good reason. Such cases involve extraordinary service to Mother Russia.
I accept the challenge.
Do you believe he will do what we need him to do?
There are two basic ways to handle a situation. One is with the carrot, the other with a stick. And I've tried the carrot, and if it fails, then comes the stick. One with very sharp edges.
Friday, September 5th, 1913. Nikolai Krasakov enters a cafe where he sees Sergei Mulaski already seated and waiting for him for lunch. Krasakov joins.
You're late. Where have you been?
I spent some time looking up some of the official records of the Beiliss case. I guess I lost track of time.
So you had your meeting with Viper?
It was this morning, no more than 10 minutes.
What did he say?
It's a command performance. I was not able to say no.
Did you want to refuse the assignment?
I have searched my soul on that question, and it turns out that I want the case.
What about Beiliss? Do you think he's guilty?
Probably not, but I will have to reserve judgment. As you know, he has refused to sign a confession for over 2 years.
I understand that 3 detectives were assigned to the case. What did they find?
No conclusive evidence.
Were you and Viper alone?
No. Luka Kalnikov was there as well. I think he's officially the state prosecutor. I asked this morning. Looks like Boldarev.
That's good. He's tough, but at least he's fair. Nikolai, if you'll allow me to say this, I think the best thing to do is to find a way to say no before you get into trouble. That's my best advice as our old friend.
I have decided to take the case.
Look, you're close to retirement. They'll go to the next person.
Who might be you?
I'd find my own excuse for saying no.
Sergei, we have meant a lot to each other. I have talked a good game, truth, justice, right to a fair trial, stuff like that. But I have never really been under the gun this way. So now is the time to stand up for what I'm supposed to believe.
I hear what you're saying, but do you really think you need to test yourself at this stage of your life? Why not just settle back, spend time with your violin and your daughter, and be a good grandpa when the time comes? What do you need to prove? You've already proven you're the best defense attorney in Kiev.
If you want to know, I do not think I have had enough courage. It is time to really stand up for what is right.
What you might prove is that you're a stubborn old fool and that you can be pushed beyond the breaking point.
If it turns out that way, so be it.
I don't agree with your decision, as you can see, but I'll be there to help if you're at the age. I want you to tell me. Will you do that?
That I can promise.
So we have a deal?
It's a deal.
Friday, late afternoon, September 5th, 1913, the jailhouse in Kiev. A heavy door is opened to the Beiliss cell. Krasikov enters and sees Beiliss sitting on a small wooden stool. Beiliss turns slowly to see who's come in.
So what can I do for you?
I am Nikolai Krasikov. You're a new attorney.
Why have you come? Is this another way of torturing the Jew? If so, I'm not having any more. Thank you. I've had enough.
No, I've got some good news.
So?
We have got your trial scheduled.
Trial. If you're trying to get me to sign the new confession, my answer is still the same. So go back and tell your cronies the Jew still holds his ground.
No, it's real. Your story is finally going to be heard.
I don't have a story. Only the truth.
And what is the truth?
That I had nothing to do with any killing.
That's what I am here to talk to you about.
I don't believe you. I've seen too many people here that look just like you, but they all had the same purpose, to get me to sign a confession.
I understand. I suppose it will take some time.
Time. I've got plenty of time. I'm only 39.
Perhaps my letterhead will help convince you.
This says you're an attorney. What of it?
Please, just talk to me. You have nothing to lose.
You're right. I already lost everything. My job, my dignity, my freedom, my life. I live here among the vermin and the roaches.
I cannot do anything about what has already happened. But there is a possibility for the future.
Future? I've stopped thinking about any future, just how to survive each day from the morning hours to dark. Each day I must find a new way to think, to keep myself occupied in this hellhole.
Mr. Beiliss, I beg you. We don't have much time to prepare you the thing. Just a few days. Then we are into pre-trial and, I suspect, trial itself.
Is this real? After all this time?
I promise No confessions, no signatures, no papers, only talk.
Talk I can do. I've always been good at that.
Okay. The first thing you can tell me is everything you remember about March 12th, 2 years ago. You know, the day the Christian boy was murdered.
There's really not much to tell. I was working at the Zaitsov brickworks. I went into the yard and I found two boys playing on the mixer. I walked toward them and they started to run away. And as they ran, they picked up some small rocks and threw them at me. And I didn't run after them, so soon they were gone. I didn't know their names. I never saw them again. That's it.
About what time of day was that?
About 9 o'clock in the morning.
And it is your impression that one of them was the murdered boy, Andreyusha?
Yes.
Then what else happened?
Nothing. Until July 22nd, when I was arrested. I was charged with murder on August 3rd. It was all a great surprise to me.
So between March 12th and July 22nd, you were concerned that something bad might happen.
News of the murder traveled fast. All my friends knew about the Black Hundreds and the claim that the Jews were responsible for the child's murder. It was all over the streets. So I would say, yes, we were worried that one of us would be accused of the crime. Or maybe that we would see another pogrom, even after they had basically stopped.
Okay, you say you were surprised that you were arrested, but yet you were afraid that someone might be arrested. Did you expect that it might be you?
If you're a Jew, you're always afraid that there's something bad going to happen, that it might happen to you.
So how could you be so surprised when you were arrested?
I am now beginning to believe that my only defender will be me. Maybe your job was to get the case over with so they can hang the Jew as quick as possible. Is that what you're up to?
I am not acting as a tool of the state. I am here to find the truth and to defend you to the best of my ability.
And what if your ability for the convenience of the state is not so good?
Mr. Beiliss, you have nothing to lose by trusting me. What other choice do you have?
I can ask for another lawyer.
That would be a big mistake.
All right. So you're my lawyer.
Good. Now, I need to know where you were the rest of the day the boy disappeared.
You mean, do I have an alibi? Well, after work, I went back to my room and stayed there until I went to sleep. My room is at the brickworks.
Do you have anyone who can vouch for you? Anyone who saw you, especially during the daylight hours?
I have no other witness.
That is not good news. Is there anything else that you wish to tell me?
Only one other thing. I read Russian, and I'm able to read newspapers. And before I was arrested, some said the Jews were killers. And some said the detectives that found a person named Vera Cheberyak, that she was responsible. This will tell you where to look in order to defend me.
It is my intention to look more deeply into that matter. Of this, you can be sure.
And that's all I have to say.
All right. Now, I expect to be back to see you about every couple of days. Please think about anything else you need to tell me.
You ask me to trust you. I will try. But I have very little trust left in me. I will look for strength. Maybe that can be turned into trust.
The London Times, September 8th, 1913. The High Command in Kiev, Russia, has decided to hold a pre-trial hearing in the case of Mendel Beiliss, the Jew accused of a blood libel. It is scheduled for September 11th, 1913. The world continues to watch, mostly with a critical eye.
Now, you told me that two boys came to visit the brickyard to ride on the mixer. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
And you chased them away?
Well, not exactly. Every time I went toward them, they ran. I wasn't chasing them, but they may have thought I was going to hurt them. A few times I called and I told them not to be afraid, but they never stopped to listen or to talk to me. I guess they thought that they were doing something wrong. I would grab them, but that was never in my mind. A few times, like the morning of the murder, we turned as they were running and they threw some small stones at me.
Was the name of the other boy in the confession they asked you to sign?
I don't remember. It might have been. Can't you get a copy of the confession from them?
I have tried. They will not release it.
Why is that so important?
Well, maybe they have a deposition from the other boy. I will find out at the pre-trial, but I would like to have the information now.
But the other boy says that I carried Andrusha off.
Then we have got to attack him and show that he is lying.
How do you do that? I understand he's dead too.
Yes. Zenya, I find that interesting that he would also die so soon after Andriush's death. There is a sworn statement.
You sound as if you have some doubts. I told you, I'm innocent.
I do believe you. I was just saying that I would have to prove that he was pushed into signing the statement.
Then that's what you have to do.
And that's what I will do. Now, I want to talk to you about some things you have to do. First of all, at the pre-trial hearing, you will be questioned by the prosecution and then me. The judge may interrupt and also ask you some questions. You are obliged to tell the truth. You are also obliged to keep yourself under control.
What does that mean?
It means you have to present yourself in a certain way.
You mean I have to be something I'm not?
Not exactly. It has to do mainly with your look and your attitude.
I look the way I look. Nothing more, nothing less.
I'm just asking you to be careful. No smiling, no sarcastic looks, no outbursts. Speak only when it's time for you to answer questions. The rest of the time, no emotion. Above all, don't allow any questions to get you angry. Just answer directly but firmly with conviction.
Not a good word to use, Mr. Krasikov.
I'm sorry, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Can you do it? Can you keep your pain and anger under control?
We Jews have been practicing that for hundreds of years. I can do it for a few more days. So, I ask you again, Mr. Krasikov, do you believe me?
I believe, Mr. Beiliss, that you are an innocent, caught in this terrible time in the history of the Russian people.
Thursday, September 11th, 1913. The courtroom. Noises of protest are heard outside the courtroom as the double-headed eagles distribute pamphlets calling for a guilty verdict even during the pre-trial. All the principal characters are in attendance. Ivanov and Kalnikov are seated as prosecutors. On the other side are Beiliss and Krasikov. There's a space reserved for newspaper reporters. The courtroom is packed as the pre-trial hearing begins. The judge is Fyodor Boldarev.
As most of you know, this hearing will not call any witnesses, with the exception of the defendant. The cases and evidence will be presented by the prosecution and defense attorneys using sworn affidavits only. On this basis, the court will decide whether or not there is to be a full trial. In such a case, there will be a jury present. I will first call for the prosecution case and then for the defendants. Is the prosecution ready?
We are, Your Honor.
Then proceed.
We are here today to consider the deed of one Mendel Beiliss against the people and the state of Russia. This deed, the murder of a young Christian boy, was a heinous crime for which there must be quick and appropriate retribution. The prosecution will show, without any doubt, that on the morning of March 12th, 1911, just before the Jewish Passover, Mendel Beiliss seized the boy Andrusha Yushinsky against his will and dragged him to the kiln yard, where he brutally stabbed him numerous times. The coroner's sworn affidavit, which I now place into evidence, says that there were more than 45 stab wounds in the body. As a consequence, all the blood drained from the child very quickly. This brings us to the nefarious motive of this crime. the use of the boy's blood in the Jewish celebration of their Passover holiday, celebration of a Jewish holiday, and at the same time, a celebration of the murder of a Christian child, a child of Russia.
Objection, Your Honor. There is no evidence that the Jewish Passover holiday calls for blood or the killing of a Christian child.
That evidence, Your Honor, will be presented shortly.
Continue, Mr. Ivanov.
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution will deal with the matter of the Jewish practice of mixing Christian blood with their Passover matzahs by presenting another sworn affidavit, this one from the distinguished Father George Pranaitis. This affidavit presents irrefutable evidence that such is the practice of the Jewish people. Further, Father Pranaitis is not the only one to have such a view. This has been established as a fact by many other clergymen throughout the world.
Objection, Your Honor. Such attribution is hearsay and not supported by concrete evidence.
Sustained. Proceed, Mr. Ivanov, on a different line of argument.
Your Honor, I would like to present now the sworn testimony of one Yuliana Shaikovskaya. In this affidavit, Mrs. Shaikovskaya swears that there was an eyewitness to the abduction of the Zhuzhensky boy by the defendant on the day of the murder. Yes, an eyewitness. Someone who is able to tell us firsthand that the crime was committed not by any Jew, but by Mendel Beiliss in particular. Further, and most importantly, we have a sworn affidavit from the person, namely Anna Linkova. Your Honor, this sworn affidavit from Anna Linkova says that she personally saw the abduction of the boy Yushinsky by the defendant, and she followed him as he went to the kiln yard. There can be no more incriminating evidence. This places Beiliss in the process of the crime in the direct vicinity of the location where the dead body of the child was found. I submit, Your Honor, that this damning evidence against the defendant by itself justifies the decision to proceed with a full trial. The prosecution, however, does not rest with this conclusive evidence. There is more to come.
1 minute. Is the defense attorney in possession of both sworn statements?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Then I ask the prosecution to continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I said, we have additional evidence to present to the court. In particular, I now provide a sworn statement from Vera Chibriak. The statement says that her son, Zinya, who unfortunately took ill and died a year or so ago, was with the murdered boy when they were both accosted by the defendant. Further, he saw Beiliss run off with the boy Yushinsky in the direction of the kiln yard. We do not have the direct statement of Zinya since he is no longer with us. But we have the next best thing. A sworn statement from his mother that all of this occurred.
We object, Your Honor. The original observation was made, if it was, by Zhenya, not Zhenya's mother.
I'll allow it. Continue, Mr. Ivanov.
Thank you, Your Honor. And finally, I have our last sworn affidavit to be put forth at this hearing. It is related to the last one and is the statement from the daughter of Vera and Vasily Chibriak. Her name is Ludmila. Reading briefly from her statement, and he, referring to Beiliss, grabbed Zinya and Andrusha. Somehow Zinya broke free and he, again meaning Beiliss, ran off carrying Andrusha on top of his shoulders. I submit this affidavit to the court. And with these statements, the prosecution has demonstrated two critical facts. One, that the defendant had a strong motive to commit this terrible crime. And two, that eyewitnesses say that he abducted the boy and carried him to the scene of the crime. Although there are numerous other details that the prosecution can present, it chooses at this time to rest its case on what has thus far been presented. However, The prosecution asks that it have the right to present other information to support our case at a future time during this hearing.
So granted, as long as it is pertinent. Do you have anything else to say at this time?
No, we are anxious to hear about the meager information that we expect to be presented by the defense. We believe that our case is so strong that we will save a lot of time and energy here by moving as quickly as possible into the full trial.
So noted. As is our practice, the court will then be in recess until 1 o'clock this afternoon, at which time we will hear the evidence to be presented on behalf of the defense. This recess will also allow the defense some time to review the documents that have been submitted by the prosecution. The court is now in recess. The defendant is remanded to the custody of bailiff.
Doesn't look good, does it? All of this is lies.
Of course, unfortunately, they cannot be directly challenged since we are not able to interrogate the witnesses directly at a pre-trial hearing.
So what does it mean?
Let's just wait and see what happens this afternoon.
Thursday afternoon, September 11th, 1913, the bailiff leads Beiliss into the courtroom for the continuation of the pre-trial hearing. Krasikov is already there and greets him. Judge Boldarev enters and is seated at the bench. The pre-trial resumes.
The court is now in session in the matter of the state versus Mendel Beiliss. We continue with the pre-trial hearing and now ask the defense to present. Are you ready, Mr. Krasikov?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then please proceed.
Thank you. This morning, we heard the prosecution attempt to build a case on one and only one premise, namely that Mendel Beiliss had a reason, a motive to kill the boy Andriusha. So I will start by examining this so-called premise very carefully. And the name of this premise is ritual murder. Despite what has been presented as fact, the Jews do not practice ritual murder. It is a direct violation of their sacred commandments, one of which is, "Thou shalt not kill." Nowhere in all the Jewish law and writing is there even a hint of using the blood of Christians to make the Passover matzah. In fact, any type of ritual murder in this context is anathema to the Jewish people. So, Mendel Beiliss did not have a motive to commit this crime. And without a motive, the prosecution's case goes up in smoke, and we cannot convict the defendant on the basis of the smoke, or should I say smoke screen, put up by the prosecution. Now, how do I support this argument? I am not a Jewish scholar. So I have here a deposition from such a person, the chief rabbi of Kiev. His name is Menachem Yulevich, and he has provided a sworn statement that the notion of a ritual murder is completely opposite to the teachings of the Jewish people and their holy book, the Torah. The rabbi goes on to say, and I quote, "The ritual murder idea is a fiction that comes from those who wish to do harm to the Jewish people and is not represented in any reputable Jewish text or interpretation of such text," close quote. In this same vein, I wish to place in evidence an editorial page of the New York Times, a well-known and most highly respected newspaper in America.
The prosecution objects, Your Honor. It is a matter of procedure at a pre-trial to have only sworn statements or direct questioning of the defendant placed in evidence.
Sustained. Otherwise, the court opens the door to all manner of documents. But the sworn deposition of Rabbi Yulevich is accepted.
The sworn affidavit of Rabbi Yulevich should be sufficient. Surely we must give precedence to a Jewish scholar over the conjectures of a Christian clergyman who cannot be as well versed in such matters. This is a critical point, Your Honor. Remove the motive, and we see that there is no reason for the defendant to commit this crime.
Do you have anything else to offer as evidence on this particular point?
No, Your Honor.
Then the court suggests that you move on.
I would next like to address the matter of the investigation by the police. As the prosecution has indicated, the crime occurred sometime during the morning of March 12th, 1911. On this point, there is no disagreement. From March through June of 1911, the murder was investigated in detail by a police detective by the name of Mishuk. Mr. Mishuk had a major responsibility and rank, and his findings are to be believed. And these findings were, and I quote, from a signed deposition obtained from Mr. Mishuk just last week, that I found no evidence that Mendel Beiliss committed the murder of Andriusha Yushensky, close quote. And he goes on to say that, and again I quote, all the evidence pointed to a gang of criminals connected to Vera Cheberiak, and that the crime was indeed committed in the home of Mrs. Cheberiak. I submit this statement to the court. Now, on the basis of this evidence alone, the defense submits there should be no trial, but I will go even one step further with Detective Mishuk. In his sworn statement, he also declares, and again, I quote, there is no such thing as the Jews committing ritual murder. It is rank superstition. I ask the court to examine his deposition and carefully and very carefully to give it the weight that it deserves in these proceedings.
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Mishuk is not an expert in Jewish law and ritual, and therefore his opinions regarding this subject should be stricken.
Your point is well taken, and I will consider it when I review all the findings of this hearing. I've made such a note on the deposition itself.
Let me then, Your Honor, move on to another subject. And that is the nature of the man, the character of Mendel Beiliss. A man that has led an exemplary and law-abiding life does not all of a sudden begin to commit murder, especially one of this terrible violence. Now, I support the fact that Mr. Beiliss is a fine man with an outstanding character, with this sworn statement from Mr. Vaitsev, the owner of the brickworks at which Mr. Beiliss worked. Mr. Vaitsev says, and I quote, Mendel Beiliss was employed at my brickworks from May 1910 to July 1911. And during that period, I was able to observe his behavior in considerable detail. I found him to be honest, straightforward, conscientious, and competent to a fault. He goes on to say, based upon my observations, I do not see any way in which Mendel Beiliss could have committed any crime, much less one of murder. This is a direct quote. This is a direct quote from Mr. Vaitsev, a respected businessman and member of the community.
Have you completed your presentation, Mr. Krasakov?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then we move on to the matter of direct testimony under oath of the defendant. Is it your desire to put Mr. Beiliss on the stand to testify?
No, Your Honor. I believe the facts and statements of others speak on his behalf.
Then ask the same question of the prosecution. Do you wish to interrogate the defendant?
We see no reason to do that, Your Honor. Our evidence shows that he is clearly guilty, It is our desire that we move on as quickly as possible to the actual trial of this defendant.
Then I wish to ask the defendant a few questions. Please take the stand, Mr. Beiliss. All that you say in response to my questions will be under oath. My first question is simply, did you abduct and then kill the boy Andrusha Yushchinsky?
No, I didn't, Your Honor.
Do you have anyone that can vouch for your whereabouts on the day of March 12th, 1911?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I was at the brickyard just doing my work alone, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. After work at the brickyard, I went back to my room. I was reading until I went to sleep.
And during work that day, did you see or talk to anyone who can vouch for you?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have anything else to say on your behalf?
Just that I had nothing to do with any killing. I've been kept in jail for more than 2 years, and I'm completely innocent. All the statements that were made by the prosecution are lies. I don't know how these people can swear to lie. I feel very helpless.
Is that all, Mr. Beiliss?
The defendant, as you can see, has been under a lot of stress.
Is there anything else that you wish to say?
No, that's all.
The hearing will resume tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with closing statements, after which I will present my decision. The court is adjourned.
Friday, September 12th, 1913. Judge Boldarev is entering the courtroom, which quiets down as he's seated. The usual arrangement of people is in attendance.
I'm here this afternoon to render my decision in this case. We have heard the presentations of both the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution submitted a total of 6 sworn statements. Although none of this testimony claims to have seen the defendants commit the crime, there is much circumstantial evidence that points to that direction. The defense on their side provided the court 3 sworn affidavits, Rabbi Dulevich, Detective Mishuk, and Mr. Weitzel. However, no direct alibi for the time of the murder was presented on behalf of the defendant. On the basis of all the evidence provided to the court, I hereby declare that there is sufficient reason to believe the guilt of the defendant. I hereby also confirm that we will proceed to a full trial of this defendant. Such trial is to begin on Thursday, September 25th, 13 days from today. This pretrial hearing is adjourned.
This be happening? Feels like a dream.
It does not look wonderful, but we are by no means without weapons. I will be working this weekend, and I will come to see you next week.
Better you should get some more evidence. Come see me when you have something good to tell me.
I told you, Mr. Krasakov, that you would lose the battle. I suggest, for your own well-being, that you carefully consider how vigorous to be in your full trial defense.
I know you have much power, but I choose to believe that every man deserves to have a proper defense, even a Jew.
You are right on one count and wrong on the other. I do have considerable power. On the other, the Jew is not a man. The Jew is less than a man.
I do not share your sad and cynical view of these people.
Sad or otherwise, it is true.
I stand, nonetheless, on the principles of this court, which include justice and the right to a fair trial.
It is always good to be standing, Mr. Krasakov, but make sure you are not on a bed of quicksand. I think my message is clear, and I will be here to see your performance at the trial.
Headline: Tuesday, September 3rd, 1913. Mendel Beiliss, a Jew in Kiev, Russia, is accused of blood libel and jailed in a harsh Russian jail. This is a most serious charge, claiming that he killed a Russian boy to use his blood for the making of matzah for the Jewish seder. The world, from Europe to the United States, observe with astonishment, holding rallies and asking lots of questions. We
Just that I had nothing to do with any killing.
Kiev, Russia. The New York Times. Kiev, Russia. The New York Times front page. The judge in the famous Mendel Beiliss case came to a conclusion from the pretrial evidence that there is sufficient evidence to move on to a full trial. The courtroom, September 25th, 1913. Protests are heard outside as the Black Hundreds distribute guilty pamphlets to the crowd. At the same time, the trial has prompted an outcry of protest by prominent intellectuals throughout the Russian Empire. Vladimir Korolenko, a well-known journalist and political activist, wrote a plea to the Russian people.
Mr. Krasikov, call your next witness.
I call Father Pranaitis. Do you swear? Under the laws of Mother Russia?
I do.
So, Father Pranaitis, we have heard your testimony as an expert witness and also seen your written affidavit that claims that the Jews, as people, regularly engage in the ritual murder of Christians. Is this your position?
Yes, it is.
And that the Jews mix the blood of Christians with their Passover matzahs?
Yes.
And you have quoted a so-called Romanian authority by the name of Neolian as one of your authoritative sources?
As well as other sources.
And you are aware, are you not, that Neolian was a converted Jew with virtually no background in Judaism?
That was not my impression.
I see. Well, we will deal with the obscure Neolian later. But for now, tell me, Father Pranaitis, do you know the meaning of the word Hulen?
No.
How about Erwin?
I do not.
And the word Yabamat?
No.
These are some of the titles of the chapters of the Talmud. Did you know that?
No.
Yet you have given us your interpretation of what is in the Jewish texts of the Talmud and the Zohar. Can you now tell us the meaning of these two words?
I cannot.
Is it not true, Father Pranaitis, that you do not read or speak Hebrew or Aramaic?
No, I never learned them.
And yet you claim to be an expert on the practices of the Jewish people.
I have read numerous interpretations in our language.
But never in the original text or the interpretations of Jewish scholars.
That is true.
And yet you expect this court and the jury to believe that you are an expert in these matters?
I know what I know.
Which apparently is not very much.
That is for the jury to decide.
Exactly. And based upon your meager knowledge, the jury will decide. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have to ask this witness.
Do you have any rebuttal witnesses that you wish to call?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then please do so now.
The defense has already presented in the form of a written and sworn statement the testimony of Rabbi Ulevich, the chief rabbi of Kiev. Now we call to the stand the chief rabbi of the city of Moscow, Rabbi Mazek. Do you swear to tell the truth under the laws of Mother Russia?
I do.
Please, if you would, state your name and occupation.
I am Rabbi Yaakov Mazek. I serve as chief rabbi of Moscow.
And have you reviewed the written statement of Father Pranaitis?
I have.
And will you tell the court your findings as an expert in these matters?
There is no truth in any of it. There is no thing written in any reputable Jewish writings that either espouses or suggests the ritual murder of Christians. And there is no mixing of blood with matzah.
And upon what do you base your views?
On my 41 years as rabbi, as well as my reading of the actual original text, both in Hebrew and in Aramaic.
And have you read the sworn statements that I have presented here in the court from Fathers Dimitrov and Kolmogorov, two non-Jewish scholars in the field of Jewish law and practices?
Yes, I have.
And what is your finding?
Both Dimitrov and Kolmogorov say that the Jewish people do not either believe in or practice the ritual murder of Christians.
And both are Christians themselves.
I believe they are, yes.
And since there is no Jewish concept or practice of ritual murder, would you then agree that ritual murder cannot be a motive for the defendant?
Objection, Your Honor. This is clearly leading the witness.
I will allow it. Please answer.
I would agree that there is no purpose in a ritual murder, and therefore no motive for the defendant.
That being the case, what is your view of the ritual nature of the murder of Andrei Yushchenko?
I would say that it was an attempt to implicate a Jew.
I object. The question improperly calls for inference rather than direct experience.
Your Honor, the witness is called as an expert.
Yes, but not in drawing conclusions from the evidence.
The objection is sustained. No further questions along this line.
That is fine. And Rabbi, one more question. You heard the testimony of Father Pranaitis about the person who goes by the name Neolian. Do you have any information about such a person?
This person is known as a fraud who has no knowledge of Jewish law. This is well known to me and my colleagues.
Okay. The defense has finished with this witness. We thank the rabbi for coming all the way from Moscow to appear at this trial.
And the court thanks you as well. Now, considering the lateness of the day, these proceedings will be resumed tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The court stands adjourned until then.
A bit of good news.
But will the jury believe the rabbi? After all, he's a Jew.
Well, that remains to be seen. But the rabbi did well, and Pranitis did not. A fair jury will vote for Rabbi Mazek.
Do we have a fair jury?
Let's hope so. But that too remains to be seen.
Thursday, September 25th, 1913. The office of Dmitry Viper. There's a knock on the door, and Kalnikov enters.
You wanted to see me?
Yes. I'm not pleased with the first day of the trial.
I agree. Mr. Krasikov is doing too good a job.
And distinctly not listening to my messages to him. I made a decision and I want you to carry it out.
Yes.
First of all, it's time for Krasikov to be removed from the case.
But that might lead to complications.
Yeah, that occurred to me. But we will construct two claims of bribery, both saying that Krasikov attempted to pay for testimony that he saw another person run off to the kiln yard with Andreyusha.
Which, of course, is a serious crime on the part of a defense attorney.
Precisely. And then you will go to Kalnikov and you will tell him that we have such sworn testimony that he has one of two choices. One, that he face charges, that he be indicted for charges of bribery and face them immediately. And two, that he resign from the case of his own. And we will tear up the bribery charges. For the second choice, it is also mandatory that he retire without his pension. He needs to be punished.
But if we back him into the loss of his pension, he may choose to fight the indictment. I assume we prefer that he resign of his own volition. If we allow him to retire gracefully and keep his pension, he will see that as a much preferred choice.
You make a good point. My new selection for a defense attorney is Sergei Malusky.
Why Malusky? What if he turns out to be as much of a problem as Krasikov?
He is well respected. Also, Malusky has a wife, and she has a brother and a father who I can exert considerable pressure on. He will notice the power against him by Krasikov's resignation. A man of his age and reputation does not need to be placing his whole life at risk.
Are you sure?
I know men quite well, as you know. And we have many ways, as you also know, to send messages and exert influence. Now, go to Krasikov's office and immediately let me know the results.
Wednesday, September 17th, 1913. Krasikov's house. Krasikov and Malusky are having after-dinner schnapps.
Zdrovia, my friend.
I can't believe you're in such a good mood. I would be so angry if I were you.
Yes, I should be. I underestimated how vicious they are. I wish I could throw all of it away and stand up to them, but maybe I am not as noble as I was hoping I was. I am an old war horse, and on the down cycle, I am out to pasture. But I am counting on you to get justice for this man. Just be careful. I got a number of threat letters.
What did they say?
The usual. My life is in danger, Jew lover, and all the rest.
Anything you can recognize?
Might be from the Black Hundreds of the Double-Headed Eagle. They are different from run-of-the-mill threats.
Should I ask for police protection?
The way things are going, you might need to be protected from the police.
Anything you can tell me about Beiliss that would help me?
I don't think I have seen anyone quite like him.
What do you mean?
Well, He's been in this miserable jail for over 26 months. No trial, no recourse, no contact with his family, only continuous pressure to sign a confession. He is happy we are going to trial, but he could be hung within a month, and he realizes that.
Yes, that is true.
And so what does he do? He jokes. There are small, sharp little stabs directed at himself as much as at me and the rest of the world. I find it remarkable. It's like being serene at a time when he should be ranting and raving, like smiling when he should be cursing, or laughing when he should be crying.
It's very interesting what men do under most serious stress. Most cave in completely, some fight on, and some joke about it.
Well, we could all learn from him.
You are being too hard on yourself, Nikolai. Za zdrowie.
Good luck, my friend.
Wednesday, October 1st, 1913. The Russian state attorney, Dmitry Viper, unhappy with Nikolai Krasakov, has replaced him with Sergei Milasky.
And now is my new public defender. Mr. Milasky, I presume.
I thought you agreed to call me Sergei.
Sergei, Nikolai, who will be the next one?
Now, Mr. Beiliss, you promised me.
And Nikolai promised me. And now I have to break in the new defense attorney.
I am hardly in need of breaking in.
We had some good things starting to happen, and now we have to start over again.
That's not the way it is. Nikolai briefed me in detail about the case, all the evidence.
And did he brief you about me?
What about you?
That I'm becoming cynical and resigned, that I'm losing my faith. And faith to a Jew is very important.
I can understand that, but we are making good progress.
I'm talking about faith, and you're talking about progress. There is no progress without faith. It's also not the first time I lost my faith. There was another time when my wife left me. She found another man who was better looking.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
There are many things you didn't know. You don't know what it is to be a Jew in Kiev and have your life undercover. And when you come out, they arrest you for something you didn't do. And you don't know how we live and how we try to stick together against the Goyim. You don't know how we huddled in fear when the soldiers raced their horses through our streets. And when they caught the Jew, they cut his head off, or they hang him in the street. You don't know how it is to pass each day in this place, where time is your enemy, and you have to think about that to keep yourself from going mad. And sometimes you actually wake up in the morning and it takes a moment or two to see that nothing has changed, that your life is still hell, that the vision you had last night of your dream before was just a dream. There's some of the things you don't know, my lawyer friend Nikolai. I'm sure there's some others.
It's hard for me to answer.
Answer. There is no answer. Men kill each other all the time. It's one of the wonderful things that God put into man. It's in our 5 books from the beginning. Do you know about our books?
You mean your Torah?
Yes, and all its stories of war and famine and of plagues and of faith. We're supposed to have endless amounts of faith. We pray every day, 3 times a day, so that our faith will be restored and confirmed. And we need as much as we can get in times like this.
I don't promise you faith, but I promise you, though, that I will defend you with everything I have.
And what if everything isn't enough? I know what happened with Mr. Krasakov. They came after him. He turned away from me. It's not hard to understand. And I blame him, but I don't blame him. He's just a man, a Russian man. And you're a Russian man.
I can only ask you to hold on just a bit longer. Mr. Beiliss, the case is moving well. We think we put some real doubt in the minds of the jury.
Doubt about what? About whether or not the Jew will fall down on the floor in the courtroom and plead for mercy. About whether I will scream with anger, top of my lungs.
Hear me out. The case is turning. You have a real chance.
The Jew has a hard time believing that.
It's true. Stay with me for another 2 weeks.
2 weeks, you say? So where else can the Jew go?
October 17th, 1913. The usual arrangement of people in the courtroom, except that Sergei Molaski has taken the place of Nikolai Krasakov as the defense attorney for Beiliss. Molaski is speaking.
Mr. Mishuk, would you please identify yourself and the position you held at the time of the murder of the boy?
I am Boris Mischuk. I was the chief detective in Kiev, March 1911.
And you were asked to investigate that murder?
Yes, I was.
And you were the first person at the scene of the crime after the murder?
Yes.
Would you please tell us what you saw?
The child had been brutally stabbed numerous times. He was lying on the ground at the kiln yard.
Did you find anything near the boy's body?
Yes, his jacket was lying right next to him.
And did you do anything with the jacket?
Yes, I picked it up and examined it.
And please tell the court what you found.
Well, in the pocket of the jacket, there was a large section of pillowcase. It had bloodstains on it.
And what did you do with this material?
I was very careful to preserve it as evidence.
How did you do that?
I brought it back to the office, where I marked it, and then brought it to the crime laboratory for analysis.
And what did the analysis show?
Objection. The witness is not trained to perform laboratory testing.
But the witness is trained in matters of reporting on laboratory results.
I will allow the question. The witness will answer.
The pillowcase had the blood of the boy on it.
All right. Now, I have here an article which I would like you to identify. Do you recognize this article?
Yes, it's the section of the pillowcase I just talked about. It has my evidence marker on it, right here.
Fine. Now, just a few more questions. In your opinion as a detective, and given that this pillowcase piece was found in the pocket of the murdered boy, do you think the pillowcase was in the boy's pocket when he was killed?
In my opinion, it was very likely that it was in his pocket when he was killed, and that his blood spread to his pocket at the time of the murder.
And were you able to find out where the pillowcase came from?
I was not.
Did it come from the house of the murdered boy?
Objection. Leading the witness and calling for inference.
Sustained. Please rephrase the question.
Did you search the house of the murdered boy to try to find a matching pillowcase?
I did, in considerable detail, and I did not find any matching piece.
So, in your expert opinion, the section of the pillowcase came from somewhere else?
Almost certainly.
The defense has no more questions of this witness. We thank you, Mr. Mishuk.
Does the prosecution have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Is it not true, Mr. Mishuk, that you were arrested and charged with obstructing justice and forging material evidence?
That's true, but I was innocent.
And did you not spend 3 months in jail and also removed from the police force?
That is true, but it was a framed case.
And you expect the court to believe you, a convicted criminal?
Objection, Your Honor.
The witness need not answer. Do you have any other questions?
None, Your Honor.
Then this witness is excused. The defense is now asked to call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense now calls Ksenia Daikova to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth under the laws of Mother Russia?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Daikova, do you live here in Kiev?
Yes.
And what is your occupation?
I am a seamstress.
And were you asked to do some of your work at the home of Vera Chebryak?
Yes.
Approximately when was that? Before or after the crime?
It was about 4 years ago, before the crime.
And what was the nature of that work?
I was hired by Mrs. Chebryak to make some pillowcases for her.
Did you do so?
I did.
How many pillowcases did you make?
2. And they were identical, of course.
I now show you a section of the pillowcase from the evidence of the court. Tell the court, do you recognize the material from this pillowcase? Now look at it very carefully.
It is the same pillowcase. that I made for Mrs. Chibiriak.
Again, so that you're absolutely sure, look at this pillowcase.
There is no doubt in my mind. I made this pillowcase for Mrs. Chibiriak.
Now, you say you made the pillowcase some 4 years ago. Do you have occasion to see the pillowcases at the Chibiriak house around the time of the murder?
Yes, I did. I was at the Chibiriak house at the end of March of 1911 after the boy, Andreyusha, was found murdered. I remember looking for the pillows and cases. I found one of them in use, but the other was not.
And then what happened?
Well, I asked Mrs. Chibiriak about it, and she said that one of the pillowcases had gotten lost. She then asked me if I would make a replacement pillowcase for her.
And did you do so?
Yes, I did.
And you have absolutely no doubt that the pillowcase section you have examined here in the court is from the cases you made for Vera Chibiriak.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading the witness.
I will allow the question. Please answer, Ms. Yakovlev.
It is definitely the same pillowcase.
And how can you be so sure?
I make a special design that has my imprint on it.
So, this means, does it not, that this bloodstained section of the pillowcase is traceable directly to the home of Vera Chibiriak?
Objection. The question calls for an inference.
It does, but not an extreme or improper one. Answer the question.
In my mind, it does.
Thank you, Ms. Taikova. I have no other questions for this witness.
The court thanks you as well. Now, since we are approaching 4 p.m., I will adjourn the proceedings of this court until 10 a.m. tomorrow, at which time the prosecution may question the witness. The court is hereby in recess.
The New York Times, Kiev, Russia, October 19th, 1913. The courtroom trial of Mendel Beiliss continues on the second day after 2 years of internment in a Russian jail. His attorney, Sergei Mulaski, is working hard to make a case for the Jew, accused of a blood libel transgression against the Russian people. The world continues to watch. Mass protests in support of Beiliss were reported from England, Germany, France, the US, and Canada. The courtroom is filled with the usual characters.
The court asks the defense to call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Anna Linkova to the stand.
The prosecution objects. This witness provided a sworn statement on behalf of the prosecution at the pre-trial. She was not called as a witness for the prosecution at this trial.
The fact that she was not called as a witness for the prosecution does not preclude the defense from calling her as a witness. Objection overruled.
Come, Miss Linkova. Sit, please. Mrs. Linkova, do you swear to tell the truth under the rules of Mother Russia?
I will.
Please tell the court your name and occupation.
My name is Anna Linkova. I don't have what you call occupation.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. You provided to this court a sworn statement, did you not?
Yes.
I refer now to that statement, which is listed here as Exhibit K for the prosecution. In that statement, you said you saw the defendant, Mr. Beiliss, who is sitting right here, take the boy Andrusha Yushinsky from the brickworks to the kiln yard. Is that correct?
If that's what the paper says.
That is what it says. Can you please now tell us if you were at or near the brickworks when you first saw the defendant with the boy?
I was just outside the brickworks.
And what were you doing there?
That's where I go a lot.
For what purpose?
I don't understand.
Why do you often go to the brickworks?
Because it's nice. It's nice and quiet there.
And what do you do there?
Well, that's where I kind of.
Oh, you mean you spend a lot of time there each day?
Yes.
And do you basically live there?
You might say so.
All right. And on the day that you saw the defendant with the boy, you said you followed them to the kiln yard. Is that right?
If that is what the paper says.
The paper says that. And the paper also says that Mr. Beiliss appeared to be in a hurry as he took the boy from the brickworks to the kiln yard. Is that correct?
I think so.
Objection. The defense is putting words into the mouth of the witness.
I'm simply confirming what is already in evidence, Your Honor.
I'll allow it. Proceed.
And how far is the brickworks to the kiln yard?
I don't know.
It's a distance of a half-a kilometer. Does that sound right to you?
If you say so.
And Mr. Beiliss was moving quickly with the boy.
Yes, if that's what the paper says.
Anna, you seem to have difficulty walking. Do you have some type of ailment?
I don't walk very well.
And how long have you had trouble walking?
I don't know, 5, 6 years. I have sore leg. I have trouble walking.
But yet your statement says that you followed Mr. Beiliss and the boy to the kiln yard, a half-a kilometer away, and they were moving rapidly.
Objection. This whole line of questioning is improper. The witness has already given a sworn statement. Now the defense is badgering the witness about this statement?
The questions are all right. The witness is asked to answer.
If Mr. Beiliss and the boy were moving rapidly and you were barely able to walk at the time in question, then how is it possible for you to have followed them from the brickworks to the kiln yard, a distance of 1/2 kilometer?
I object again, Your Honor. Irrelevant and immaterial. And again, putting words in the mouth of the witness.
Please be seated, Mr. Ivanov. The questioning is proper.
Again, I ask you, how could you do that in your condition?
Maybe I didn't. I don't remember.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't see Mr. Beiliss at all on that day.
I don't remember.
Of course you don't remember, because it never happened. Isn't that right?
I don't know. They asked me to sign papers.
You mean your sworn statement?
Yeah, the sworn statement.
Did you read the statement they put in front of you?
I was rushed. They said sign it and I signed it.
Without reading it?
I don't have time to read it. It was long. It was complicated. I don't read very well.
Isn't it true, Anna, that you never saw Mr. Beiliss at all on the day of the crime?
Maybe I didn't. It is too hard for me to remember all of that.
You were badgered by the prosecution, were you not, to give this testimony?
Yes! They threatened me. They told me I wouldn't be able to sleep near brickworks. I have to be near brickwork because in winter it is so cold I will freeze to death.
I understand. And I'm sure the jury understands. Don't be afraid. I have only one more question. Do you now say that you never saw Mr. Beiliss with that boy that day or any other day?
I never saw them. They made me say I did.
British Manchester Guardian continues to decry the Russian position that support blood libel by the Jewish people. It is the afternoon of the same day, Monday, October 27th, 1913, back in the courtroom.
Mr. Ivanov, you have cross-examined Anna Linkova. Do you have any other witnesses to present or question?
No, the prosecution rests.
What about you, Mr. Merlasky?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call to the stand Vera Chevryak. Do you swear to tell the truth according to the rules of Mother Russia?
I do.
Mrs. Chevryak, what is your association with the gang known as Troika?
Objection, Your Honor. Miss Chevryak is not on trial here.
I'll allow it. Proceed. Witness, please answer the question.
I have nothing to do with that gang. These are all gossip that neighbors and others had fabricated because they are envious of my family.
You have a half-brother known as Peter Singiewski?
Yes, I have, but
You are aware that he and his colleagues have been arrested a number of times for burglaries that have been going on around our city, and that he uses your apartment as a meeting place for him and his gang?
a lot of bad people have done him wrong. None of that is true.
Mrs. Cheveryak, was your brother at your apartment on March 12th, the day that Andrei was killed?
I don't really remember. He used to come over all the time.
We have witnesses that say he was, and that the boys Andrei and your son Zhenya were outside playing at your apartment. We also have witnesses that said that after the boys stopped playing, Andrei came into your apartment to get his school books and walked into your brother and his buddies.
Again, I don't remember. It's over a year that all this happened.
Mrs. Cheveryak, what happened to your son Zhenya?
Something that should never happen to any mother in this world. He died, taken from me.
How?
The doctor said he was poisoned.
Is it true that your daughter died the same way?
Yes.
Mrs. Cheveryak, who do you think poisoned both of your children? Maybe someone who did not want them to talk or testify?
Objection, Your Honor. These are terrible questions to ask a mother in mourning.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Romanov, would you like to cross-examine?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Malasky, do you have any other witnesses to present or question?
Just one more witness. The defense calls Amzor Singiewski to the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth according to the rules of Mother Russia?
I do.
Please state your name and occupation.
I'm Amzor Singiewski. I do trading for a living.
Mr. Singiewski, you say you do trading as your occupation. What exactly does that mean?
I buy goods from one person, I sell them to another.
Fine. And do you often work with a person by the name of Vera Cheveryak?
Yes, I work with Vera a lot.
So Vera Cheveryak is a good friend of yours?
Yes, I would say so.
And where do you get the money to buy the goods that you then sell?
Most of the time, Vera gives it to me.
So you depend on Vera to give the money you need?
Objection, Your Honor. Here again, the defense is putting words in the mouth of the witness.
The questions are appropriately framed. The objections is overruled.
Has Vera ever failed to give you the money you need to do your trading?
Sometimes.
And when would that be?
When she wants me to do something I don't want to do. She can be a very nasty person sometimes. A big pain.
And if you think back to around the day of the murder of the boy, Andrusha Yushinsky, do you call Vera being, as you say, a big pain?
I didn't have anything to do with the boy. I never even saw him.
I asked you about Vera, not the boy.
Yes, Vera. I can't remember, no.
And you say you never saw the Yushinsky boy?
Yes, I never saw him, ever.
That's funny. The sworn statement from Vera, and I quote, "My son Zhenya and Andrusha were together early in the morning on the day of the murder." She says that Andrusha came to her house to meet Zhenya that morning, and that both Mrs. Cheveryak and you witness all of that. You often sleep at the Cheveryak house, and you were there the morning that Andrusha came to call on Zhenya. What do you have to say about that?
I object, Your Honor. All of this is irrelevant to the case against Beiliss.
It doesn't appear to be irrelevant to me. The witness will answer.
I don't know. She must have been lying.
Your good friend, Vera Cheveryak, was lying?
She lies sometimes.
Is that right? Was she also lying in her sworn affidavit, where she says that you were playing with both Zhenya and Andrusha that morning, the morning of the murder?
She's a liar. She's just trying to make me look guilty.
Guilty of what?
Guilty of murder. I didn't do any murder.
What about Vera? Did she do the murder?
I don't know. Maybe she did.
Vera was angry with you at the time, wasn't she? And when she was angry at you, she didn't give you any money. And so you couldn't make any trades. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Let me refresh your memory. When Vera was arrested in 1911, she gave a statement to the police. That statement, and I have it here, says that she was angry with you and also that she kept you without money to teach you a lesson.
I object. The defense is manufacturing evidence.
I submit this police record, signed by the police as well as Vera Chebriak, as an exhibit for the defense. It confirms exactly what I said, Your Honor.
The prosecution calls for a recess to look at these papers.
The prosecution may not call for a recess. I call the recesses, and we are not going to have one now. Here's a copy of that exhibit that you can read. Please proceed.
I asked the witness to answer. Was not Vera Chebriak very angry with you at the time?
Do I have to answer?
The witness is instructed to answer. And remember, you're under oath.
She was very mad at me for some reason. I could never understand why. Then she threatened me. She said I couldn't have any more money, ever.
No more money for you, ever.
I was scared. No more money. Then she told me there was a way I could get back into her good graces.
But there is something you can do.
And what was that?
That maybe if I played hard with the boy.
Play hard with the boy.
And he had an accident.
Have an accident.
We blame it on the Jew.
Blame it on the Jews.
He was having some trouble with some Jew and she wanted to teach him a lesson.
So you played hard with the boy that morning?
Yes, I played hard with him.
Play hard with that boy.
And I hit him, not too hard, but he fell and he didn't get up. I was scared. He looked like he might be dead.
And then what happened?
And then I ran to Vera and she said he was dead.
He's dead. See what you have done.
I still don't know if he was or he wasn't to this day, but I was scared. And Vera said, she said if we stab the boy a lot.
Stab him, do it again. And more.
And we make it look like that a Jew had killed him. So I did. And then we wrapped him in a rug.
Wrap him in this rug.
And then we moved him outside. He was still bleeding a lot. So I tore up a pillowcase and I mopped up his blood with the pieces. When it got dark,
get him out of here now.
I brought him to the kiln field, but Vera had the idea and she made me do it. She was going to make me poor. I can't stand being poor. I can't.
Do you have any further questions, Mr. Molaski?
No, Your Honor.
Then I will call for a short 10-minute recess, after which I will allow the prosecution to interrogate this witness. The court is now in recess.
I think you've done it. You've found the murderer.
I believe I have. And I imagine the jury will agree with us, but I don't take anything for granted. The jury will probably be asked to start their deliberations by late this afternoon. If I know Bo thereof, he'll make them work all night, if that's what it takes to reach the decision by tomorrow morning.
You mean we'll know in the morning?
I'd bet on it.
I never thought I'd see justice after all this time.
You haven't yet? Let's just wait until the morning.
Another day, Mr. Molaski. I can wait.
The next day, Tuesday, October 28th, 1913. Back in the courtroom for the verdict.
This has been a long journey with the eyes of the world upon us. I now ask the jury, have you reached a verdict in the case of the state versus Mendel Beiliss.
We have.
And how do you find it?
We find the defendant, Mendel Beiliss, not guilty.
Well, Lawyer Molaski, you did it.
We did it. Without your faith and perseverance, we would not be here today.
Does this mean I can leave? I can just get up and leave?
Yes, it does.
Before I do, just one more thing.
Yes?
May I call you Sergey?
I would be pleased and honored.
Well, Sergey, it's been a long uphill struggle. In the beginning, I never thought we'd see this day.
Nor did I, and you did a great mitzvah.
I don't understand.
A Jewish word that Beiliss taught me. It means a very good deed.
How did I do that? I thought I had failed.
Beiliss would have been found guilty if you couldn't bring Linkova and Sinkiewski to the courtroom. So you did help Beiliss in a big way, even though your hands were tied.
I see what you mean. So it was a mitzvah, you say?
A big one.
You know, Sergey, there will have to be many, many mitzvahs to fix the problems we have in Russia today. In addition to all the hatred, we have too much power in the state and not enough in the people.
And as you have always said, it's the people that count.
And I still believe it. And one day soon, the corrupt system we have will come crashing down.
A welcome thought, but at the same time, difficult to contemplate. But as we know, there is still much danger now that Beiliss has been found innocent.
That's certainly true. Many will blame this verdict on us, the Black Hundreds, for example.
And others.
So, Sergey, how about a little nip? A small celebration and reward?
How can I refuse you, my dear old friend and brother defender?
And so, to your health and the health of the defense.
To yours as well, and to defenders everywhere.
Za zdrowie!
Ah.